We'll go ahead and get started. I will now call to order the meeting of the Omaha Planning Board. The Planning Board members that are here today are David Rosacker, Michael Pate, Jeff Moore, Patrick Morse, Cindy Franklin, and I am Greg Rosenbaum, Chairman. Members of the city staff that are in attendance today are Dave Fanslaw, Planning Director, Eric England, Assistant Planning Director, Mike Carter, Acting Current Planning Manager, Robert LaRocco, Planning Board Administrator, Jennifer Taylor of the City Law Department, and Lisa Agins, our Recording Secretary. Our rules of procedure are as follows. Notice of this hearing has been published. Copies of today's agenda are located on the table in front of us. You are welcome to come down and pick one up. The cases on the consent agenda will be heard first. Consent cases are perceived by the Planning Board to be non-controversial, have already been heard or been recommended for layover, and therefore will be read and voted on without the opportunity for your testimony. If you wish to testify, you may remove the case from the consent agenda. When each consent case is read, I will ask if anyone wants the case removed. If you do, please stand up and say so, and the case will be removed. This case will then be heard in the order in which it appears on the regular agenda after we go through the consent cases. When the case is heard, you will have the opportunity to come to the podium, clearly state your name and address, and give your testimony at that time. When hearing cases on the regular agenda, the board will first hear from the applicant, and after the applicant states their case, we will hear from the proponents, and then we will hear from the opponents. After both sides are heard, the public hearing will be closed and no additional testimony will be permitted unless a board member requests additional information. When at the podium, please clearly state your name, address, and whom you are representing for the record. Your testimony is very important to us. In the interest of time and courtesy to others, please be short and to the point. We will try to limit each case to 10 minutes. Those directly involved in the case, please speak first. We request that large groups select a spokesperson to represent that group, therefore eliminating repetitive testimony. When giving testimony, please provide new information and try not to repeat what has been previously said. We do ask that all speakers and others be treated with courtesy and with respect. In that regard, please remain silent while seated, and please turn off your cell phones. Our decision to approve, deny, or continue a case made here today will be forwarded to the City Council for another public hearing and final disposition by the City Council. Conditional use permits are an exception to this rule. The board's decision made here today on conditional use permits are final and not forwarded to the City Council. Lastly, upon the advice of the Law Department, all communications to the board members from attorneys or other interested parties should be transmitted through the Planning Department so that they are made a part of the public record. The department will then transmit all that information to the board as well as to the rest of the public. Rezoning matters are an exception to this rule. A current copy of the Nebraska Open Meetings Act can be found in a white binder on the east wall of this room. There are no changes to the consent agenda, so I'm going to get started with the consent cases. The first case on the agenda is number 11, case C3-20-158. Applicant, Darren Smith, Arch Icon Development. It is on for layover. The request, approval of an amendment to the future land use element of the city's master plan from downtown mixed use and industrial to high density residential. Location, northwest of 16th and Charles Street. Does anyone wish to have this removed? Okay, seeing none. Agenda item number 12, case C10-20-139, C12-20-140. Applicant, Jeff Shepert, THC and D Inc. It is on for layover. Request preliminary plat approval of Seward Townhomes, a subdivision inside city limits with the waiver to Section 53-4D lot frontage, along with rezoning from DR and R2 to DR and R5. A portion of the property is located within the Flood Fringe Overlay District. Location, 8415 Seward Street. Does anyone wish to have this removed? I said Shapiro, I meant Shepard. Got it? Seeing none, we'll move on. Agenda item number 13, case C10-20-141, C12-20-143. Applicant Darren Smith, Arch Icon Development. It is on for layover. Request preliminary and final plat approval of the cottages, a minor plat inside city limits with rezoning from GI to R7. Location, northwest of 16th and Charles Streets. Does anyone wish to have this removed? Okay, seeing none. Agenda item number 14, case C10-20-144, applicant Annabelle Rodriguez. It is on for approval. Request rezoning from GI to R5. Location, 2106 Poppleton Ave. Does anyone wish to have this removed? Seeing none. Moving on, agenda item number 15, case C10-20-145, C10-20-157, applicant Diane Stoner, CCA. It is on for approval. Request rezoning from R1 and R2 to R5, along with approval of the MCC Major Commercial Corridor Overlay District. Location, 201 North 90th Street. Does anyone wish to have this removed? You want it removed, sir? Okay. That case will be removed. Case number 15. All right. Moving on, agenda item number 17, case C10-20-147, C10-20-148. Applicant Arch Icon Development. It is on for approval. Request rezoning from GI to DS with approval of the ACI 1 area of civic importance overlay district. Location 1120 North 20th Street. Does anyone wish to have this removed? Okay. Seeing none. Agenda item number 22, case C7-20-153. Applicant Tony and Donna Brown. It is on for approval. Request approval of a conditional use permit to allow pet services in the GI district. Location 6508 North 16th Street. Does anyone wish to have this removed? Seeing none. Agenda item number 23, case C10-20-154, C7-20-155. Applicant Dan Downs. It is on for layover. Request approval of a conditional use permit to allow warehousing and distribution limited in the GC district, along with approval of the MCC Major Commercial Corridor Overlay District. Location 1809 Madison Street. Does anyone wish to have this removed? Okay, seeing none. Agenda item number 24, case C7-20-156. Applicant Patrick Morgan. It is on for approval. Request approval of a conditional use permit to allow indoor sports and recreation in the CC district. Location 9756 Park Drive. Does anyone wish to have this removed? Okay, seeing none. From the board, do we have a motion for those consent items that are on for approval?
I move to approve agenda items number 14, 17, 22, and 24.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Lisa, will you please record the vote?
Pate,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Morris,
Yes.
Franklin, Rosacker,
Yes.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
motion approved.
Okay, do we have a motion for the consent items on for layover?
Motion to lay over cases 11, 12, 13, and 23.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Lisa, will you please record the vote?
Rosacker,
Yes.
Pate,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Morris,
Yes.
Franklin. Mr. Chair,
Yes.
motion approved.
Okay, those cases that we just approved on consent, no further action will be taken today. You are free to stay and listen to the proceedings. You are welcome to leave. It's up to you, but we'll continue on here with our regular agenda. Okay, our first case is agenda item number 1. Case C3-19-65, applicant, Planning Department on behalf of the City of Omaha. Request approval of the disposal of city-owned property to an interested party. This was laid over from May of 2019. Location, 1306 South 12th Street. And Autumn, you're presenting?
Yes, good afternoon. Autumn Evans, City of Omaha Planning Department. I recommend the approval of the disposal of city-owned property to an interested party, which the address is 1306 South 12th Street. We have the interested party here that is able and willing to present their development, and I'm here to answer any questions as well.
Okay. Thank you. Do we have any other proponents that wish to speak?
Yes, Mike Peter, 3814 Farnham, and I'm here to answer any questions you guys have.
Okay. Any other proponents wishing to speak? Seeing none, are there any opponents? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Additional comments or questions from the board? Eric, did you want to add?
Just that the development team met with us last year after last year's layover for this request. We just wanted more specific plans for the area. They do own adjacent parcels to the north and south, and they did meet with us, and we're comfortable in proceeding with the disposition of the city-owned property. I would expect there to be other processes that come before this board in the future related to the development. Staff recommends approval.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
We have a motion and a second. Lisa, will you please record the vote?
Moore,
Yes.
Morris,
Yes.
Franklin. Yes. Rosacker,
Yes.
Pate,
Yes.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
motion approved.
Agenda item number 2, case C3-19-232, applicant, Planning Department on behalf of the City of Omaha. Request approval of the 10-square townhomes TIF redevelopment project plan. This was laid over from the July 2020 meeting. Location, 618 through 636 North 46th Street, and Don is presenting.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon. Don Seaton, Omaha City Planning Department. Project site for this townhome project, TIF project, 46th Street. This is the Family Fair building along Saddle Creek. So this site looks over the Family Fair building, grocery store. This is a new construction townhome project. Currently there are 2 single-family homes and 2 duplexes on the site. These will be demolished. The project consists of 10 row home units in a single structure. These will have 2-car garages. There are 2 2-bedroom units. They'll have a 1-stall garage. Developer 10 Square LLC. Let me put up an elevation here. Managed by Jerry Slickburn. This is about a $5 million project. They're asking for $835,500 in TIF support. Complies with our master plan, and we ask for your approval.
Okay, thank you, Don. Any other proponents that wish to speak?
Good afternoon. Michael Sands, 1700 Farnham Street, on behalf of the developer, Dream Vesting Capital. Just a couple items to add to what Don said, it is a $5 million project. The area is in great need of rehabilitation. The current site, or the current structures on the site, are dilapidated and actually have quite a few code violations that require demolition. So that will obviously will kill two birds with one stone with respect to that. With respect to the TIF amount and the need for TIF, there is a huge amount of work that needs to be done on the site. A lot of grading, a lot of the demolition as well. So the site preparation costs have really driven that part up. Like Don said, it'll be a mix of 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom. And pursuant to the planning department's review, it does comply with the comprehensive plan by increasing density and providing owner-occupied housing. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other proponents? Seeing none, are there any opponents that wish to speak? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Any additional questions, comments from the board? Eric, did you have a follow-up?
Just that, we've met with this development team for quite a while, so we're glad to see that we can get to the point of the recommendation for approval and proceeding and get this thing constructed. So staff recommends approval.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion and a second. Lisa, will you please record the vote?
Moore,
Yes.
Morris,
Yes.
Franklin. Yes. Rosacker,
Yes.
Pate,
Yes.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
motion approved.
Moving on to agenda item number 3, case C3-20-129. Applicant, City Planning on behalf of the City of Omaha, request approval of the disposal of city-owned property to an interested party. Location, 2601 Wirt Street. And Autumn, don't go anywhere. You got the next 5 cases. So.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Autumn Evans, City of Omaha Planning Department, again. Item number 3, this is in regards to the property at 2601 Wirt Street, city-owned parcel. This lot, we are recommending approval of the disposal of the city-owned lot. Let's see here. I haven't used this before.
Speak a little louder.
Matt, can you turn
Yes,
Autumn's
I can
microphone
speak
up a bit?
louder. Is that better?
Or is-
So here is a city-owned lot we've owned for about 7 years, and I am recommending approval of the disposal of this lot. It would go to the neighbor at 2605 who's been maintaining that lot for over 20 years and has done a remarkable job maintaining that lot. They requested the lot, and this is for formality purposes. Any questions?
Autumn,
Yes.
did you get a hold of,
No, I did not get a hold of that particular party, but today's item, after discussing with the assistant director, is specifically to approve the sale or the disposal of the lot, not necessarily who it goes to. And so that would be city council, once I have a purchase agreement and route that through.
Thank you, Autumn. Are there any other proponents that wish to speak?
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Joyce Beasley. I live at 2605 Wirt Street, adjacent to 2601. My mother, she just passed in February. She tried to get the lot for quite a while, and I tried to assist her. And when I spoke with Dan from Habitat Humanity, and he said that he thought it was fair that we get the lot, he was going to rescind his offer to purchase the lot because of the fact that we've been taking care of it for the last 20 years. So that's pretty much.
Thank you.
Yes, I'd also like to do a victory garden in memory of my mom, Lorraine Reed. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other proponents that wish to speak? Go ahead, come forward. Give your name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Ramirez, and I have property next to it
the 2529 Wall Street. I was interested in buy the property long time ago. I get a letter long time ago, and it is gonna be for sale, but they changed their mind, and they say we're gonna take it back, and we can sell to you guys. So I stand back because I'm not able to get it because the city's taking over. So nowadays, I get this letter on the mail. I would like to purchase that lot too.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right, thank you. Any other proponents that wish to speak? Seeing none, are there any opponents? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Additional comments or questions from the board?
Just a quick question for Autumn or somebody with the city maybe. What's the process look like then if we approve this, but then there's two interested parties in that same parcel?
Yes. We reach out to both parties and we ask them what they'd like to do with the lot, and we make sure that what their proposed use meets zoning requirements. And so if both parties were interested, then we would most likely split the lot if that was the case. We would have to then do an administrative replat to administratively split the lot, because the lot it's a parcel which is half of the lot to the west, which so we would have to do an administrative replat there, which would most likely be the cost of the interested parties involved there. So.
Did they split the cost on it at that point as well?
Yes. We would have them split the cost of the administrative replat, the survey, and the acquisition cost would be split to two also. So this property here, or this parcel and this parcel, this is all one lot here, so we would have to administratively parcel out part of the lot and then include it with this one here. Do you have anything else with that, Eric?
No, I mean, it sounds like it would be a straightforward administrative replat. We'd have to factor that into the cost of the property if that was the decision that was made to dispose of the property.
And so today, just to repeat, this process would allow the city to sell the lot, not necessarily who it's going to go to.
Okay. Thank you, Autumn. I closed the public hearing, but I can call you forward if you want to come forward, if you have something to add. All right, come on forward. Give your name and address again, please, for the record.
My name is Joyce Beasley, 2605 Word Street.
Thank you, Joyce.
My neighbor was going to come with me, but she wasn't able to. She did send a text reading that, if it's okay, may I read this text?
Sure.
Okay, this is Regina Hill. She's a property owner directly across the street. And it says, Ms. Reed has maintained property at 2601 Word Street for over 20 years. She personal landscaped and removed trees. Please accept this as my proof as a landowner in regards to Joyce Reed. And she says, Ms. Lorraine Reed had agreed with Habitat to purchase the property, well, she knew that part, at 2601 Word Street, plans for a community garden after her mom, and she took email pictures, but I forgot to add that.
Okay.
She did want to be here, but she wasn't able to.
All right. Thank you, Joyce.
Thank you.
Any additional questions or comments from the board? Autumn, did you have anything to add?
I do not.
Okay. Eric,
Staff recommends approval.
do we have a motion? We have a motion and a second. Lisa, will you please record the vote?
Morris,
Yes.
Franklin. Yes. Rosacker,
Yes.
Pate,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
motion approved.
Agenda item number 4, case C3-20-130, applicant, City Planning, on behalf of the City of Omaha. Request approval of the disposal of city-owned property to Habitat for Humanity of Omaha under Community Development Law, Location, 1806 Corby Street. And Autumn?
Yes, Autumn Evans, City of Omaha Planning Department. Item number 4. As you can see, this parcel is really tiny. Habitat for Humanity has recently purchased this home here, and they're proposing to demolish this home and build one new home on both of these parcels. And staff recommends approval of the disposal of this parcel. City Planning recommends approval.
Okay. Thank you. Any other proponents that wish to speak? Seeing none, are there any opponents? Seeing none, up, come forward, sir.
My name is Vishnu Guru. I own the property 1804 Corby Street on the east side of the 1806. And I received this letter, and I haven't owned there any land. Also, I put my fence regarding to everything, you know. I also have a permit, and I did a land survey.
Well, I missed, are you claiming that this is part of your land, or?
No, I received letter as this. It says I own a property 1806.
If
Okay.
I can interject real quick, the letter
Right.
you received is to an adjacent property owner. So it's basically saying the subject site 1806 that the city owns. We were just notifying you of this process in today's hearing in case you wanted to come down and speak in support or opposition of the case. We're not saying that you own 1806, the city owns it, but we notified you because you live next door.
Oh, I mean, I don't need to do any. I don't need to worry about these things.
You don't need to worry about it.
Nope.
Why I received this letter?
Just because as part of certain cases we notify because state law requires us, others we do it as a courtesy. This one was as a courtesy, just letting you know that this action was on today's meeting. So I'm sorry if you took time out of your day and you didn't need to come down, but the plan is that Habitat for Humanity is interested in purchasing this to build a new home. They own, on that map, they own 1808 currently. There's a house right there. And then they want to buy this 1806, which is vacant. They want to tear down the home on 1808 and build one new home on the entire larger property.
Oh,
So,
okay.
okay?
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other opponents that wish to speak? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Additional comments, questions from the board? Eric, did you want to add?
Staff recommends approval.
Do we have a motion? We have a motion and a second. Lisa, will you please record the vote?
Franklin?
Yes.
Rosacker?
Yes.
Pate?
Yes.
Moore?
Yes.
Morris?
Yes.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
motion approved.
Agenda item number 5, case C3-20-131. Applicant, City Planning, on behalf of the City of Omaha. Request approval of the disposal of city-owned property to the Omaha Land Bank under Community Development Law. Location, 2902 Decatur Street. And you're up again, Autumn.
Do you want me to say my name every time? Okay. Autumn
Please.
Evans, City of Omaha Planning Department. Item number
We're on item number,
5.
agenda item number 5.
Number 5, thank you. In regards to 2902 Decatur Street, the City of Omaha owns the parcel highlighted here. The land bank owns the parcel next to that. And these two parcels are located on one lot. This parcel alone is not buildable. The plan is to transfer it to land bank, and the land bank transfer it to one entity along with 2904 to build a single-family home in the Choice Neighborhood Initiative area. And staff recommends approval.
Okay.
Any questions?
Thank you, Autumn.
Mhm.
Any other proponents that wish to speak? Seeing none, are there any opponents? Seeing none, close the public hearing. Additional comments, questions from the board? Eric, your follow-up.
Recommend approval.
Do we have a motion? Motion approved. We have a motion and a second. Lisa, will you please record the vote?
Rosacker?
Yes.
Pate?
Yes.
Moore?
Yes.
Morris?
Yes.
Franklin?
Yes.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
motion approved.
Agenda item number 6, case C3-20-133. Applicant, City Planning, on behalf of the City of Omaha. Request approval of the disposal of city-owned property to Holy Name Housing Corporation under Community Development Law. Location, 2605, 2607, 2609, 2611, 2613, 2615, 2617, North 18th Street, and 1618, 1618 and a half, 1620, and 1620 and a half Ohio Street. Autumn, you're up again.
Thank you. Autumn Evans, City of Omaha Planning Department. I'm going to get a better image here. This item is for the disposal of all of the lots listed, or all the parcels listed, and this one is a better image, actually. Let me do this. It highlights all of the parcels. Holy Name is proposing to build senior living row houses here. As you can see, there is an alleyway along here, and so that would be vacated with a replat. And with that alley vacation, along with the replat, I also spoke with this property owner here and let him know that he is able to receive half of the alley if he chooses to, and so Holy Name could work with that property owner when that time comes. But City Planning recommends approval of the disposal of these parcels. Any questions for me?
Senior living, and it's going to be 14 residential units, correct? Or
Well, that isn't exactly finalized.
okay.
So that will come up at a later planning board item. So this would just essentially be the disposal of the lots.
Yep.
And then their plan will come at a later time.
Okay.
Which could change based upon their proposed zoning and use at that time.
So does this convey the rest of that alley as well?
At this time, it does not convey the alley. When Holy Name replats the area, Public Works would then look at the alley and then release it at that time with a replat versus doing an alley vacation. That would streamline the process and speed it up quite a bit versus a 6-month alley vacation.
Okay. Thank you, Autumn.
Yes?
Any other proponents that wish to speak?
Opponent?
I'm opponent to this.
An opponent?
I want to ask the question.
Okay,
Let's wait.
just
Opponent?
wait. We have a proponent
Proponents
coming
here.
up.
Mike Gawley, 4324 Fort Street, Executive Director of Holy Name Housing. I don't know, whatever else I can add that Autumn already hasn't talked about, but we're in the very preliminary stages. Because it has to go through a lot of zoning yet and rezoning and replatting, so I'll certainly answer any questions if I could.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. Any other proponents that wish to speak? Seeing none, are there any opponents? Sir, now it's your turn. Give your name and address, please.
Alonzo Gulliford. I have property in that area, right across from the property they're trying to buy. And I want to know how that's going to affect our property values as they put that kind of buildings in there. And I want to know if it's going to raise our property taxes. Our property tax has been going up regularly every year by thousands of dollars for our property tax. Now this put in there is going to make our property tax go up even worse. And I want to know how that's going to affect the area. Those are the places they're going to build. What are they supposed to be building there?
Well, they're, yeah, right
Hmm?
now they're,
Row homes? Senior row homes, oh my God. Well, that's about all I want to say, and that's my objection.
okay, thank you, sir. Any others in opposition that wish to speak?
Gregory Robinson, 2603 North 18th Street.
Sir, I didn't hear your first name.
Gregory,
Okay, thank you.
Gregory, Robinson, Robinson, 2603 North 18th Street. And I own a property right next to 2605 North 18th Street. I'm a, I believe, 2605 is the lot that that is in question that I'm talking about. Also 1620 Ohio, that's also on the other side of me. But anyway, I made an attempt to purchase the 2605, and I've also inquired about it, and at that time I was told that they're not selling any city property. Earlier on, I'd actually sent money down here and I was turned down for that. So I'm wondering why now all of a sudden it's coming up for sale, and I had no knowledge about it or whatever, without them contacting me and saying, you know, hey, we're getting rid of the property, you know, you have an opportunity. Also, I believe I spoke to Autumn about the alley vacation, or where they were gonna vacate. And I was wondering about that because she did tell me that I could get half of it. So I was like, well, can I have the whole thing? She's like, well, no, the other interested party would get the other half. So now I'm finding out that the city owns the other half. So I'm wondering why I couldn't get the actual alley on that actually, you know. So that's kind of actually where I'm at with it. I just wanted to know why it's actually, this is kind of coming up. I wasn't notified or anything, and I've been told that the city's not selling anything, they're hanging on to everything. So I'm just making my objection that I would like to have a fair chance at the properties.
How long ago did you make that, sir? How long ago did you make that inquiry with the
The
city?
inquiry might have been like a couple of years the last time. The other inquiry was back a little bit after I acquired my property, which was quite a while ago, but I've also been inquiring in between there too for that property
Okay,
on 2605, not the 1620.
right. Thank you.
I believe it was a James Teal or something. I don't know how long he's been in here, but way back then I remember it was a James Teal. Okay.
Are there any other opponents that wish to speak? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Autumn,
Yes.
did you want to come out and address some of
Yes, I did speak
what
with
Gregory had to say?
Gregory Robinson. And I informed him that we were wanting to vacate the alley. And with the Public Works vacating process, typically it goes 50% of the alley goes to one property owner, the abutting property owner, and the other 50 goes to the other property owner. And at that time, I was discussing with Greg that we were wanting to sell these and do senior living facilities with that. But at the time, I don't recall Gregory asking to purchase that. But his previous inquiries was before I was here. And these lots, or these parcels, we purchased with community development block grant funds. And so with that, we have certain restrictions as far as what type of use we would be required to specific requirements on what the new developer can do with that. And Holy Name is going to be doing affordable senior housing, and so that seemed like a good project. And so if Gregory would like to purchase a few of those lots, he can certainly contact me, and we can look and see what his specific use would be for those lots and look at it at that time. So this item would specifically allow the city to sell these lots, not necessarily who it goes to or the specific development. So I do recommend approval on behalf of the City of Omaha Planning Department.
And Autumn, the other gentleman had a question, I think it was Alonzo, about taxes. I don't think you have any idea of what an impact would be.
Well, I do not work for the Douglas County assessors, and I do not create their of assessments on those. I do know that this is vacant lot that is minimally maintained due to our budget restraints, and we would like something productive in the area versus just vacant lots. And there is a need for senior housing, absolutely. But as far as the taxes goes, I wouldn't be the one to speak on that behalf, on their behalf. Mhm.
Okay. Eric, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, just, you know, the potential of adding affordable housing units to the areas is always a benefit and a plus to the neighborhood, and we strongly support that use for this area. Just to touch on the alley vacation process, you know, doing a vacation through a plat is usually the quicker method. As Autumn had mentioned, there are a few other ways to vacate alley or street right away, and it's, you know, either through a petition requiring a certain amount of abutting property owners, or there's also the planning board initiated process. So, you know, we'll just have to continue to work and coordinate with the developer. If it's, you know, transferred to Holy Name, we'll continue to work with them and their development team on the best way to vacate that alley. And you know, we would definitely have to continue conversations and how that affects 2603 Ohio Street, or, you know. So we'll just have to continue those efforts. Staff recommends approval.
Okay. Just a question. Gregory, did you understand that if you contact Autumn and give her your request of lot and what purpose, and if it complies with zoning, then you can move forward with Autumn? Doesn't mean that you'll necessarily get the lot, but there's another person or another entity interested in it, so, okay? Does that answer the question you came?
Yeah, it does, but what about as far as the alley? Is he saying that, wasn't he saying something like?
Come on, I'm gonna bring it forward. Give your name and address again, Gregory, if you wanted to, if you still got a
Gregory
question.
Robinson, 2603 North 18th Street. Was he saying that they were working with what was the name? Holy Name Housing. Okay. So was he saying that they were going to work with them as far as the alley? They were going to give it to them and decide the best situation?
I'm
for it?
saying there will have to be further action that'll come back before the planning board and city council. Nothing with the alley is changing at the time with this specific request, but I anticipate in the future, I don't know the time frame, there would have to be another action that vacates that alley. Okay.
So they already sent me a letter saying they were vacating it. Why did I get a letter saying it was being vacated?
The letter that you received was probably just the disposal of city-owned property.
No, it was an
maybe
actual
Autumn.
vacating letter.
I have the letter here.
Oh, okay.
If only it was on the top. The letter was from me, and it was to let Gregory know that we were looking into vacating this alley, and we wanted to get his input since he's the only house that abuts the alley besides the city properties. So that was just to kind of get have some communication with you and speak with you about this potential development and the alley vacation process. In the meantime, I'll find this letter.
So, but how can Holy Name be in the picture if they don't even own the property yet?
That's their request. They requested to purchase all the property shown in red, and that's what's being voted on today.
We're just taking an action today to decide if we're gonna dispose of that property.
Okay.
And then you can contact Autumn and move forward with that.
And like he said, you're talking about actual sale when you say disposal, right? It
Yes.
is considered sale, okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, my letter says, City of Omaha is interested in vacating the alleyway behind your property located at 2603 North 18th Street. Please contact me to discuss the alley vacation process and potential plans for the surrounding area. And then I attached a map, kind of the alley. So that was just to make sure we are in communication with you, since you're the only house on the block right there.
Okay.
But we will be talking. You have my number, right?
Nope.
No? Okay, let me get that for you. Do you have a
All right.
pen?
Yeah,
Can I write down for you?
put it on there.
Okay.
Thank you,
Put it right at the
Gregory.
top of there.
Okay.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Any additional comments or questions from the board? Eric, you gave your recommendation. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
We have a motion and a second. Lisa, will you please record the vote?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Rosacker?
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Pate?
Yes.
Moore?
Yes.
Morris?
Yes.
Franklin?
Yes.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
motion approved.
Agenda item number 7, case C3-20-134, applicant, city planning on behalf of the city of Omaha. Request approval of the disposal of city-owned property to 1528 North 16th Street LLC under Community Development Law. Location, northwest of 16th and Charles Street and 1553 North 17th Street. Your last one, Autumn.
Yes, last one. Try not to take too much of your time. Item number 7, Autumn Evans, City of Omaha Planning Department. There are 3 parcels which we are referring to, located northwest of 16th Street, Charles Streets. Well, let me just give you a little picture here. Okay, so the properties are south of Clark, and this area here is Charles Street, which will be constructed starting this Friday. And the area highlighted in green is City of Omaha property, as well as this parcel here, 1553 North 17th Street. And this development will come through the planning department or the planning board at a later time, but this is essentially to approve the transfer of property, the disposal of city-owned property under community development law, and we recommend approval. And I am here to answer any questions that you have specifically on these sites.
Thank you, Autumn. Are there any other proponents that wish to speak?
Good afternoon, Darren Smith, Arch Icon Development, 509 Walker Street, Woodbine, Iowa. Here on behalf of the owner, 1528 North 16th Street LLC. We purchased that property, it was, I believe, August of 2018, and have been working with the Sienna Francis House on a development that will expand on their opportunities to house the homeless. And one of the steps in that process was securing these lots. So we worked with the City of Omaha. The environmental reviews have been done. Properties were cleared. Also working with Public Works, connecting 16th and 17th Streets. We have some more planning to do. We have some items on the agenda laid over. We've engaged with M-Space and Lovegren for some public outreach that we'll be doing over the next month to reach out to all the neighborhood stakeholders and move forward with the planning.
Okay, thank you, Darren. Any other proponents? Seeing none, are there any opponents? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Additional comments, questions from the board? Eric, your follow-up?
Yeah, just to reiterate what Darren had said, there were a couple items on the agenda laid over, future land use amendment, as well as plating and rezoning. There could also potentially be a PUD in the future. So they're currently coordinating with us, have submitted a site plan review that we're providing feedback on the general layout and overall plan. And this component of transferring the city-owned properties along with the extension of Charles Street from 16th to 17th will be a great enhancement and great project in the area moving forward, and we recommend approval.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Lisa, will you please record the vote?
Pate?
Yes.
Moore?
Yes.
Morris?
Yes.
Franklin? Rosacker?
Yes.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
motion approved.
Autumn, thanks for your
Thank you very much.
presentation.
Thank you.
Moving on, agenda item number 8, case C3-20-135, applicant, city planning on behalf of the city of Omaha. Request approval of the 1420 Rose Court TIF redevelopment project plan. Location, 1420 Villa Rose Court, and Don is presenting.
Yeah, good afternoon, Don Seaton, Omaha City Planning Department. As you can see in the map here, the site in yellow is to the north and west of I-80 and 13th Street. As Eric England had mentioned earlier, our master plan, city's master plan does support affordable housing. This project is an affordable housing project. It is a proposal from Holy Name Housing to do some row homes, total of 16 units. They'd be arranged in 3 structures. We have 2 structures with 7 units each, third structure with 2 units. Parking would all be provided on site. Total project investment is about $6 million for the neighborhood. They're requesting $250,000 in TIF support. Project complies with the TIF program criteria. It's appropriate land use for the area. Staff recommends approval. Okay, and here's what they look like, or elevation.
Thank you, Don. Any other proponents wishing to speak?
Mike Gawley, Executive Director of Holy Name Housing, 4324 Fort Street. I'm here to answer any questions you got. We're close to starting construction on this. This is the final drawings here, and certainly will answer any questions you have.
Okay.
Yeah, we're busy.
Any other proponents that wish to speak? Seeing none, are there any opponents? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Additional comments, questions from the board? Eric, did you have a follow-up?
Just a brief mention that we did do the platting of Villa Rose on 15th and a PUR back in late 2018, early 2019. Other than that, staff recommends approval.
Do we have a motion? We have a motion and a second. Lisa, will you please record the vote?
Moore? Yes. Morris?
Yes.
Franklin? Yes. Rosacker? Yes. Pate?
Yes.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Motion approved.
Agenda item number 9, case C3-20-137. Applicant, City Planning on behalf of the City of Omaha. Request approval of the 24th and Q Street Community Redevelopment Area designation. Location, an area generally bound by Q Street between 24th and 21st Street, as well as S Street between 21st and 15th Street on the north, W Street on the south, 21st and 15th Street on the east, and 24th Street on the west. And Don.
Now, Don Seaton, again, is, on behalf of Omaha City Planning. Community redevelopment areas, when we designate those, they open the ability for a developer to use TIF within the area, tax increment financing. We had a developer interested in a site at 24th and Q, which would be right here, and doing a low-income housing tax credit project. Again, affordable housing. We did a review of the state law criteria for community redevelopment area listing. We found that this area does comply with the standards in state law, and we are recommending approval of a community redevelopment area designation. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Don. Any other proponents wishing to speak?
Rob Woodling, Foundations Development, 1886 South 126th Street. I'm the owner and of the property that Don referenced on 23rd and Q Street. We'd love to help with this finance, use different tax increment financing to help the development, affordable housing for seniors. Mixed income will actually have 20% market rate units, and then 80% of our units will be affordable. So we'd love your support. Thank you.
Okay. Any other proponents? Seeing none, are there any opponents wishing to speak? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Additional comments or questions from the board? Did you want to follow up? Eric?
Just recommend approval.
Do we have a motion? We have a motion and a second. Lisa, will you please record the vote?
Morris?
Yes.
Franklin? Yes. Rosacker?
Yes.
Pate?
Yes.
Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
motion approved.
Agenda item number 10, case C3-20-138. Applicant, City Planning on behalf of the City of Omaha, request approval of the 2021 through 2026 Capital Improvements Program. Location, City of Omaha and the 3-mile extraterritorial zoning jurisdiction. And Kevin, you're presenting.
Good afternoon. Kevin Carter, City of Omaha Planning Department. As you all know, the CIP, or Capital Improvement Program, is the annually updated 6-year program of major infrastructure projects, including streets, sewers, parks, and other public facilities throughout the city. The Planning Department facilitates the process of updating that each year, but it involves the efforts of staff from all the different departments. We kick it off in January and hold meetings throughout the spring to come up with a balanced program of capital improvements that fits within the general obligation bond authorizations approved by voters. The most major addition to the CIP this year is the $200 million street preservation bond authorization approved by voters in May. That will fund street reconstruction, rehabilitation, and residential resurfacing projects throughout the city. And dozens, well, probably hundreds of other capital improvement projects are in the CIP, which is available online on the Planning Department website, or the draft is also on the main City of Omaha page if anyone would like to go take a look. Yeah, other than that, Planning Department recommends approval.
Any other proponents that wish to speak? Seeing none, are there any opponents wishing to speak? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Additional comments, questions from the board?
The only thing I'd just add is that when we review these periodically, it's always an amazing document how many man hours of all the different departments that are involved in this, and it's well put together. So I'm just congratulations on that.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Eric, did you have a follow-up?
No, just that the document is compliant with the master plan as part of the 2021 budget. You know, multiple departments are involved, as Kevin had mentioned, but really Kevin and his manager, Derek Miller, do a great job of organization, and there's been great improvements in the presentation of the document in recent years since Kevin's come on board. So I just wanted to recognize those efforts. Staff recommends approval.
There is a lot of reading, but it's organized and well done reading. I mean, it's a great job, Kevin.
And pictures even.
And pictures, yeah. Do we have a motion?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Lisa, will you please record the vote?
Franklin? Yes. Rosacker?
Yes.
Pate?
Yes.
Moore?
Yes.
Morris?
Yes.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
motion approved.
Okay, I think we're moving to agenda item number 15, which was taken off of consent. It is case C10-20-145, C10-20-157. Applicant Diane Stoner, CCA, request rezoning from R1 and R2 to R5, along with approval of the MCC Major Commercial Corridor Overlay District. Location 201 North 90th Street. Is the applicant, are you the applicant?
I am representing the applicant.
Okay.
Matt Wegener, BVH Architecture, 901 Jones Street, representing First Covenant Church at the address listed in the rezoning application. The current property is located just south of 90th and Dodge and directly adjacent to commercial office space, residential, Neighborhood, and of course, 90th Street. During the pre-application meeting with the city, it was brought to our attention that the current situation, the building sits on an R1 and R2 lot. So this rezoning application brings the lots together and conforms to current city ordinance for an R5, which means it's 55% impervious coverage and allows us to move forward with our current construction project. What is proposed for current construction is essentially a reskinning of the building. We are not changing anything regards to parking, site circulation, or anything in that regard. And a lot of the work that we're doing now is to improve interior ADA accessibility. It's in essence an interior remodel. So I'm happy to answer any other questions.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other proponents that wish to speak?
Greg Applequist, 11662 Meredith. I'm the pastor at First Covenant Church. We desire to be good neighbors to those around us. We've talked to some of the adjacent houses and to share what we're doing. They're all excited about our plan, and so we're excited to do what we can to keep serving our community well. So thank you.
Okay. Any other proponents? Seeing none, are there any opponents wishing to speak? Come on forward. Sir, if you want to, are you going to speak also? If you want to come on down, just have a seat up front, that'll.
Yes, Patrick Swanson, 8717 Capitol Avenue, just down the street from First Covenant. Also representing the Swanson neighborhood, Swanson Park Neighborhood Association. We met with Greg and talked about the project a lot. We like the project. As he mentioned, it's an interior, mainly an interior rebuild, which we don't have a problem with. We do understand that it might be worthwhile consolidating the zoning to some R designation. So it's R1 and R2. We object to the upzoning to R5. Currently R2, the religious assembly is a conditional use of that property, and so we don't believe that it has to go to R5, which is higher zoning density. And so we would recommend the consolidation of the zoning to R2. It should allow for the project with conditional use and current zoning not to R5. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. Any other opponents?
Adrian Ferguson, 8823 Capitol Avenue. I'm one of the residents directly across the street from the church, and although I'm not opposed to the project, I sort of reiterate what Patrick said. It doesn't make sense to bump this up to an R5. Right now, as it's split at R1, R2, it seems like the R2 could accommodate the project. And, you know, as our concern, it's bumping up the density of housing and adding more cars and stuff to a neighborhood that has, you know, sits on the edge of commercial, but and sort of, you know, fights that on a daily basis. But we have no sidewalks. Kids walk to school. It's a very family-oriented neighborhood, single-family homes. So that's sort of our opposition, my opposition to this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other opponents that wish to speak? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Comments or questions from the board? Eric, did you want to answer their zoning questions?
Yeah, so currently the site does have split zoning, as you can see in the maps in your book. The west half is R1 zoning and the east half is R2 zoning. The future land use map for this property does designate it within a mixed-use boundary, which means that staff would be supportive of office or commercial zoning if the request that came forward was appropriate and fit in with those parameters. When a site has split zoning, well, first off, a site is not supposed to have split zoning. I don't know the history and how the split zoning came about with this. But the fact of the matter, when the development team met with the city about their proposed 800 square foot building addition, it was relayed to them that we can't approve a permit with split zoning. So no matter what the zoning goes to, it has to be consolidated into one district before moving forward. You know, as I mentioned, within a mixed-use boundary, we could theoretically, the city could support much higher intensity zoning. The applicant decided to go with R5, which is still fitting in with low-density residential. Yes, there is residential to the west of 90th Street that is zoned R1, and then the residential to the southeast is zoned R2. There are properties north and east zoned general office, and then also to the south, limited office. There was a zoning board of appeals case back in 1990 that increased the allowed impervious coverage to 49.5%. The proposed R5 zoning would allow up to 55% impervious coverage, which we believe with this addition they are coming close to. Therefore, it makes sense for the applicant to request the R5 so that they do not need to seek a new waiver from the Zoning Board of Appeals. If the zoning were to go to R1 or R2, yes, religious assembly is allowed with a conditional use permit, similar to the same way with R5 zoning. However, the impervious coverage would not be met with the building addition, and along with the rezoning that goes to City Council, they would have to come back before the Planning Board with a major amendment to seek approval of the addition, then also go to the Zoning Board of Appeals to allow the waiver to increase the impervious coverage beyond whatever their current amount is, which we believe approaches the 55%. Therefore, it's master plan compliant. If it was zoned to something like LO, there wouldn't be a major amendment, there wouldn't be a use permit required. It's fine with R5. A minor amendment would be acceptable for the building addition, but in a matter of cleaning things up, the request to R5, we believe it wouldn't have any negative impact on the neighborhood. If there were to be any future development of the site under the R5, there would have to be some type of other process, most likely, that would come back before the Planning Board and City Council. It's, I believe it's going to be a church for, many more years to come, just as it has been for the past 60+ years. So staff is recommending approval of the MCC Major Commercial Corridor Overlay District and approval of the rezoning from R1 and R2 to R5.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Do we have a motion?
I just have a quick question for Matt. So my understanding is the applicant had the option to either rezone to R5 or do the LO, and the LO wouldn't require the use permit application. So just curious, what was the justification for going the R5 route rather than the LO route?
Correct. We were considering at one point to go towards the LO.
Matt, will you give your name and address?
Matt Wegener, BVH Architecture, 901 Jones Street.
Thank you.
So yes, correct. We were going to consider an LO because there is history in that area of an LO property with I think some restrictive overlay, a PUD attached to that. But the R5 allowed us to move forward with this project and get everything in compliance as Mr. England had stated before. So it meets everything that we need to do as part of this project.
But the LO doesn't?
It certainly would. Yeah.
No, the LO would. It would take away the conditional use permit need. It would, yeah. But, you get the same.
We're getting the same result just with an extra step of having to do the.
No, you would always have to rezone. There's always going to have to be a rezoning that goes
Right.
through Planning Board and
But
City
we have the
Council.
extra step of doing the use permit, correct?
Yeah, so if it goes to the R5, the minor amendment, which is just staff review, can approve the building addition because it meets the impervious coverage.
Gotcha.
It doesn't need a waiver, which would require coming back to Planning Board.
Okay.
I will.
You good, Patrick?
Yep. Okay. I'll move approval of the MCC Major Commercial Corridor Overlay District and approval of the rezoning from R1 and R2 to R5.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Lisa, will you please record the vote?
Rosacker?
Yes.
Pate?
Yes.
Moore?
Yes.
Morris?
Yes.
Franklin? Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Motion approved.
Agenda item number 16, case C10-20-146. Applicant Countryside Village, Inc. Request approval of a parking adjustment for a mixed-use development, section 55-736. Location north of 87th and Pacific Streets. May we hear from the applicant, please?
Good afternoon. My name is Sean James. I'm an attorney with the firm of Smith, Slusky Law. Here on behalf of Countryside Village, our address at the firm is 8712 West Dodge, Suite 400, 68114. I'm sure you're all familiar with Countryside Village and the way it lays out. The concern that we have had repeatedly as we've been building up tenants is that when things come to the planning department and the meeting of the parking criteria for each of the different uses gets it sent back, and we have many, many delays. The reality on the street, however, is that the parking is more than sufficient. Countryside Village, Mr. Myers is here on behalf of Countryside Village too, has done a photographic survey. They went out every couple of hours. I don't know if you saw the whole packet of material that we turned in. We marked all of the parking places that were actually used, and at no point in time did we ever exceed the maximum amount of spaces inside Countryside Village. Bounding the village itself, you have Shamrock Road, which has some parking available as well, but the other streets have no parking. So everything is limited there. When we spread out, or look forward, I should say, to what the proposed uses would be for the remaining vacant spaces and allocated the highest number of spaces that would be required for those spaces, we came very close, I believe. Is PJ here today? We talked about this. To the maximum number of spaces. But when you allocate them over the 24 hours of a day, you see morning has a certain number of uses, daytime has another number of uses, and evenings have another number of uses. And we don't ever hit that 321 parking spaces already in existence because those uses are spread out. I'm going to, we did send a letter, by the way, to all the neighbors, and there was no response back on any of that. We worked with we worked with the planning department before to go through the application process, and we wanted to make sure that everything was presented appropriately. I'm here to answer questions. Do you want to add anything?
Maybe one point.
Okay, I'll let Mr. Myers speak.
Hi, I'm Andrew Myers, 10605 Shirley Street. And everything that Sean, I just want to add what Sean said with our photographic survey that was over 1 week, taking photos every 2 hours from 9 to 9. Only at one point for 1 2-hour period was our parking even over 50% of our capacity, to give an indication of the surplus of stalls we have currently, and the projections, again, at maximum use or occupancy or stall requirement for each of the vacant bays would still have us well under the 320. That's all I had to add.
Andrew, what time of year did you take it?
We did it in September on purpose, the last week of September and the first week of October, obviously before the pandemic. So it wasn't during a slow period.
That should, yeah, is that a high usage period for you?
Third quarter is a high usage period. It wasn't the shopping week after Thanksgiving, but yes, during the 52 weeks, it is a relatively high use.
Okay.
While you're there too, so I have a question. So are any businesses allowed to put proprietary parking signs in front of their businesses there?
Conditionally, yes. They're not necessarily isolated or restricted to that one business. Say we've done a few 5-minute only parking stalls. I think we have 2 right now, one near a dry cleaner and one near a Starbucks. But anybody can use them if they limit their use to under 5 minutes.
Okay, so no business has parking for Starbucks only?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Are there any other proponents that wish to speak? Seeing none, are there any opponents? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Additional comments or questions from the board? Eric, your follow-up?
Yeah, so I just want to expand upon that. We did receive a very detailed parking analysis, which we are appreciative. There was a lot of work that went into that effort, and we're very comfortable in moving forward with the information that was relayed that at times was perhaps even considering worst-case scenario for potential tenants. So, you know, the tool that the zoning code allows with this parking adjustment, this is perfectly tailored for this request that we see before us with the mix of uses. I went through a lot of the information in pre-meeting. I'm not going to go through all that here today, but if you do have any questions on any of those specifics, Sean and Andrew, I am going to add a third condition that was probably, should have been added from the start. It is in the report. So we are going to recommend approval. So let me, I'll read that here, and if Sean has any questions after I state that, you know, I can definitely answer any of the questions. But staff is going to recommend approval of the parking adjustment for a mixed-use development, subject to the two conditions in the recommendation report, but also adding a third that says a major amendment would be needed if more than 38,515 gross square feet of total restaurant, cocktail lounge, indoor entertainment, indoor sports and recreation space, if it exceeds that number.
And we have no objection to that.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
Motion for approval of the parking adjustment for a mixed-use development subject to the two conditions in the recommendation report and the third condition mentioned by Eric.
Have a motion and a second. Lisa, will you please record the vote?
Pate,
Yes?
Moore,
Yes.
Morris,
Yes.
Franklin, Rosacker,
Yes.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
motion approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Agenda item number 18, case C10-20-149, C11-20-150. Applicant Alex Villapando, request rezoning from R3 to R6 with approval of a PUD planned unit development overlay district. Location southwest of 84th Street and Lakeview Drive. May we hear from the applicant, please?
Good afternoon. Alex Villapando with Northern Ponca Housing. Just want to say what we are, our organization. We're a nonprofit Native American housing that provide affordable housing. We own and manage 118 units throughout Nebraska in 13 counties. This project is going to consist of 20 units, 8 duplexes and 1 fourplex with a community center within the property. As you know, there's limited housing for elders and handicap units. So our population is growing for the need of this type of housing. We have owned this property for a few years now, and it's been a long time coming for us, trying to gather the funding to be able to build this. One important thing is the tribe is also building a clinic nearby, so it's very important for us to develop this site because our tenants and members will have access to the clinic and other services that the tribe provides, and I believe it's within a quarter of a mile from our property. And Bros Engineering here is with us to answer any questions or anything technical.
Okay, thank you, Alex. Any other proponents wishing to speak? Seeing none, are there any opponents wishing to speak? Come on down. All three of you can come down. If you want, take a seat up front.
I'm Mitch Miller, and I live at 8459 Lakeview Drive. My opposing this is because of the amount of traffic we're going to put on Lakeview Drive. It's a hill, and as you can see in this picture, their driveway is going to be right there on that blind corner. And the junior high, Ralston Junior High, is right across the street on Lakeview Drive. It's on the other side of 84th. We have a lot of parents that pick up their children on that side because Ralston has a one-way street going there during the school hours. And you're looking at 40-plus more cars on that street. Right now, you can set at that light. It's a school crossing light for up to 5 minutes. It's not uncommon, and I think it's just gonna really bushwhack that corner unless they put a stoplight in there. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mitch. Any other opponents?
Hi, Donald Botel, 5030 South 84th Street, Omaha, Nebraska. I own the property 5030, which is right here on 84th Street. And my only concerns would be setback and elevation. I know we're only doing zoning at this time, which I don't oppose. As for a sidewalk, my house is already right up to the city property line. And that sidewalk would go directly right into the side of my house practically. So those would be my only concerns at this point. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Donald. Anyone else? Yep.
Daniel Clydesty, 8479 Lakeview Drive. To reiterate his point with the entrance here and not having a proper crosswalk or signal there, it's an accident waiting to happen. Additionally, with the hill, especially during wintertime, you can't get up that hill. So once you get started, if you stop, you can't finish that hill.
Yeah, then you're in my yard.
My lot is down here, lot number 157. Lot number 157. One of my concerns is separation and fencing between my property line and what's going on back there, what's going to be happening here, trash, things like that. I'm concerned about that coming into my property from the units.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Daniel.
Mhm.
Any others that wish to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Any comments and questions?
Yep, maybe answer a few of those
Sure.
questions.
Yep.
Was it Alex?
Alex or?
Alex, when you say senior housing, will a lot of these people have cars, or are they older than that and not driving as much?
That's a good point. Not all of the tenants will be driving because also the tribe has a transportation system, so most of them get picked up from their own homes. So I don't foresee having, let's say, 40 cars there because the plan is to have a privacy fence all the way around the property. We'll own the property and maintain the property. So mowing, snow removal, and all that kind of stuff will be done by Northern Ponca Housing. So I don't see a concern of, trash and stuff like that.
Okay.
But, go ahead.
One other item, Eric Case with Bros Engineering.
Say your name.
2309 West 50th Street.
Did you say Eric?
Eric Case.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Just to kind of address the concerns on 84th Street and Lakeview Drive, we had a preliminary application meeting with Planning and Zoning, and we discussed that intersection because, yes, we do agree that the misalignment of it is kind of an issue. The applicant and owners are willing to negotiate right away on that corner to potentially push that street over to get better alignment, which would allow for crosswalks, potentially stoplights. At the time of the meeting, city staff, there wasn't a great deal of concern for it at that time, but I spoke with the applicant just now, and I mean, that's still on the table if we wanted to revisit that, if that's an issue. So.
Yeah, so maybe this is a question for Public Works, but I have a question with regards to that. So that it appears, at least in the rendering here, that is pretty close proximity to the intersection, that entrance to the site. Do we know what the distance is?
I guess We've never had any comments on the proximity to 84th Street, I guess, but I
Well, the
guess.
reason I asked that, so if you're coming in off of 84th Street and you're looking to turn into, not coming out of, but turn into that, you got some cross traffic in there to cross over,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
So so I worry about traffic bleeding onto 84th Street if there's a delay in anybody being able to get into that site.
Yeah, I guess going off of the scale, I don't know the exact distance, but it looks like it's roughly probably 200 feet. One inch equals 50. Yeah, 150 feet, somewhere in there.
150 feet. So you could, yeah, well, you could have backup.
Yep. And we can coordinate, I mean, that location, that's generally where the location should be, but, I mean, we got to push it a little further down the hill. I think we could probably make that work too.
Was this, I didn't know, was this reviewed by Public Works? Was it? Okay, yeah, probably bring Ryan up for that. Okay. So I'm gonna ask Ryan if you wouldn't mind coming up and maybe addressing that specific question for me.
Ryan Haas with the Public Works Department. So the question is,
So what I'm concerned about, and I don't know what that distance is there, but, I worry about traffic backing up onto 84th Street, if someone's trying to get into that new development, trying to get in there, is there any concern at all that there might be a backup of cars during peak hours particularly?
yeah, we did discuss that. If we were starting over this entire area with a new plat, obviously we would have maybe set things up differently. Bottom line is there's really no other frontage, so we don't have any choice as far as serving this site with access. 84th Street's not possible because it's an arterial street, and so a driveway is not appropriate directly onto 84th Street. Lakeview Drive is a very, it has lower volumes compared to maybe some other similar residential connections to the arterial street, of 84th. So that was one of the factors is, for example, in the morning peak hour, there's something like 15 vehicles over the course of that hour, so one car every 4 minutes going eastbound. So there's kind of some mitigating factors there that makes that less concerning. Another factor was with 20 units, there's just not going to be a large volume of traffic going in and out of this site, so that was another mitigating factor. So again, it's not without its concerns, but we felt based on all of the combination of factors in this situation that it was acceptable as proposed.
So the buildings that are, at least in this map, it looks like to the southwest of this proposed project there. It looks like maybe some apartments, multifamily. I don't know if there's some industrial, but it looks like multifamily in there. Where's the access points getting off and onto 84th Street for those people? I don't see that on this map that I'm looking at.
I apologize, I don't have that in front of me.
Yeah, 84th Court, Hearn Street.
Is that all down to Q Street?
Yeah.
Looks like those accesses go to Q Street.
All the way to Q?
Yeah.
I always cringe when someone puts their phone up hoping an inappropriate text doesn't come in, so now I'm in that boat.
What's your cell phone number?
Yeah. So here's the subject site.
Yeah. Yeah. But it looks like all those houses along Orchard and Lakeview, those all feed into, it appears anyway from what I'm looking at, onto Lakeview Drive. And I don't know if there's other subdivisions to the west of that.
Probably depends on what direction you're gonna go when you're coming out of there. Yeah. Because sometimes it's difficult to cross both lanes of traffic on 84th Street, so they might go back out the other way.
Yeah. With respect to the offset, again, we would not have, if this entire area were coming in as a greenfield development, obviously we wouldn't want an offset with respect to the streets on either side of 84th Street. Our traffic counts that we took recently indicated 10 vehicles over the course of the entire day crossing east and west. So yes, there's a lateral offset, but those do exist in certain places in the city. So again, that's not something that we would require this development based on the scope and scale of the development to correct at this time.
And there's no light there at the intersection, it's just a crosswalk, is that correct?
It's a signalized pedestrian
Right.
crossing, yes, on the south leg. So not for vehicular traffic. It only stops vehicles on 84th when a pedestrian pushes the push button.
And that's for the school, I assume, because of the school.
Presumably, yes.
All right, I don't know, just looks like a very, very short distance there, and I'd hate to have any kind of public safety issues
Sure.
on 84th Street particularly as a result of that, so that's why I bring it up as a concern. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Alex, would you come up again, please? Or Eric, either one. Daniel mentioned, I think, Daniel, were you lot 157?
Yes.
And he mentioned separation from the site, or around the site. What do you have planned for your border? Is landscaping, fence, walls?
We're doing a privacy fence all the way around the property.
Privacy fence?
Yes.
Okay. Is that all that's required? Eric?
There wouldn't be any specific screening that's required. You know, there's a specific setback or buffer yard that we would have to look at. I don't know that number off the top of my head,
Okay.
so it would have to be compliant with code. But no,
The fencing's not required, but they're putting in fencing.
yeah, so we just need to make sure that it would comply with any applicable buffer yard. If it's a privacy fence, there are certain rules of buffer yard. The landscaping has to be on the benefit to the adjacent properties. So we'd have to see if that complies, because, and I'll get into my analysis, but this is utilizing a PUD, the more restrictive of the R5, R6 zoning district. So there is a PUD that kind of
That would
locks
be
the plan
covered in the
place.
permitting process.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
And then Eric, or maybe Alex, I think it was Donald, did you have a question about the sidewalks and the location of your property line?
Yes, Donald Botel, 5030 South 84th. Don't mind. Yeah, this community center here, that is showing a sidewalk right here, which does not exist at this time. My house literally sits from the street about 8 feet back right here. And I'm just concerned, because I've shared a circle drive for years with the Dunnings who own this property coming in right here. And I would have to get a curb cut or figure out what I'm gonna do with the property here, not to mention the privacy fence along here when I have a row of trees that have been split along the property line for years that go back to here, so. Not too many concerns, just something we need to work with, that's all. Thank you.
Thanks.
Patrick, did you have a question for Eric?
No, I just wanted to make sure that concern was addressed and if you guys would work with him and.
Okay, any additional questions or comments from the board? Okay. Eric, did you have any follow-up?
You know, just that, you know, this site is designated for low-density residential in the master plan. You know, it's utilizing the R6 PUD tool, which allows the multiple units on one lot, because technically that's considered multifamily. I mean, they had the option, they could have done individual lots. They're only proposing about 4 units per acre. Technically, they would be allowed up to 14.5 units per acre and be compliant with the master plan, so this is well under, you know, any density considerations of not being compliant. So it's well within low-density residential classification. Just a few items that they'll have to coordinate with us on, and, you know, if there's any fence setback questions with any of the neighbors, they can reach out to us as well. The developer will have to continue to coordinate the storm sewer as it discharges to the west, and because there is a park adjacent directly to the west. So Public Works and Parks Department will have to be acceptable to whatever those stormwater plans are, and then just a few small items that will be finalized before proceeding to City Council. Unless you have any questions for me, staff is recommending approval of the rezoning from R3 to R6 and approval of the PUD, subject to approval of an administrative plat to create a legal lot of record for the site and submission of acceptable final PUD plans prior to forwarding to City Council.
Do we have a motion?
I move to approve rezoning from R3 to R6, additionally approval of the PUD, subject to approval of an administrative plat to create a legal lot of record for the site and submission of acceptable final PUD plans prior to forwarding their request to City Council.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Lisa, will you record the vote?
Moore? Yes. Morris?
Yes.
Franklin?
Yes.
Rosacker?
Yes.
Pate?
Tentative, yes.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
motion approved.
Agenda item number 19, case C11-13-177. Applicant Atlas Capital LLC, request approval of a major amendment to the PUD Plan Unit Development Overlay District, location northeast of 92nd and Leavenworth Street. May we hear from the applicant, please?
Afternoon, Jason Thielen, E&A Consulting Group, 10909 Mill Valley Road, Suite 100 here in Omaha. With me is Larry Jobin, who is the attorney for the project. Today before you is a major amendment to the Grove Ridge Planned Unit Development. Get a little bit of bearings. This is 192nd Street. Dodge is up to the north. Leavenworth is our southern boundary. And the PUD encompasses property in this square. We own basically 2 out of the 3 phases on the project and are here before you for a amendment to the PUD. This is the older version that was previously approved January 1st, 2014. The colored areas you see there are really all that's changed, and I'll show you a difference between this plan and the plan prior to, or the plan that we have submitted that's before you today. On the July 14, we had 522 total units for the PUD, 3 phases, 217 units, or 272 units, excuse me, in phases 1 and 2. And the third phase has the remainder. That is property we do not own, but is a part of our PUD. What's before you today? Let's see if I can get these to kind of. Can you go out? Well, let's start here and then I'll bring this up. So from this version, which is the same streets, internally that are colored have changed, and the units. What I want to note is the white street in between here is the original public right-of-way that was approved with our plat back in 2014. That has not changed. And so you'll see with this, 190th Street and Jones Street are the same. What has been part of our request is an adjustment to the site plans both east and west. On the old version, we had 32 total versions, or 32 total. I've obviously been up here for a while and I can't talk. Or it's the mask, I don't know which. We have 32 total buildings on the old site plan. We've consolidated that down to 17 buildings. The majority, I think you could tell, has been moved over to this west side of our project. So it was 32, basically 10 plexes originally. We are now down to 17 total buildings, 2, 4, 5, 12, 11 and 12 plexes, and then we have 5 of the larger buildings. On the east side of the project is really where most of the change has been created besides the bigger buildings to the west. We've reduced a number of buildings in that area by a total of 1, which is in this area, and then we've spread these buildings out. The old version had the clubhouse in this corner. We have taken that clubhouse, created some green space. It may be a dog park, we don't know yet, but we've moved that clubhouse further away towards 192nd Street, which we think will be a benefit to the neighbors that are adjacent to us from that side. One less building here, a little bit different configuration, trying to shift the building so nothing directly backs up to that property. And then the buildings on this side here are spread out. So there's a little more green space. None of the buffer yards have changed. We're still maintaining the additional buffer yard along the east side of the project, which we agreed to an extra 20 feet. So our requirement's 30 feet. We agreed to an extra 20 feet and 14, and we're keeping that buffer yard as well. Most of the units have been consolidated over to the west side of the building. This is going to be a 3-story, more traditional type apartment complex. This is really more in the wheelhouse of what the group that owns the property does on a regular basis. And we've been working with planning and public works for quite some time to get that all worked out. Just to give you an idea a little bit of what the 10-plexes look like. We maintained in 14 that the 10-plexes up against the neighborhood would look more like large 2-story houses, and they've kept and we've maintained that look and feel. All the materials and main materials all meet the design code for primary materials, plenty of glass, look like really a large 2-story house. It's an idea of what the apartment complex will look like. We will maintain the 35-foot or lower height maximum. We're aware of that. These will have garage under units. They'll all be market rate apartments, just like they were before. Variety of color palettes to break up the look of the neighborhood as well. Overall, we think this is a better project for the neighborhood as well as our clients. We did have a neighborhood meeting on the 27th of July, so last week. 16 people attended that, mostly those that are right adjacent to the project. We discussed one of the main concerns was kind of landscaping and trees up against Leavenworth there, and then we're going to do some grading and probably put in a sidewalk. And so we've agreed to work with the neighbors on choosing plant materials that will be up against their property and adjacent to their homes within that buffer yard. We're recommended for approval. We're consistent with the master plan and the zoning, the subdivision regulations. And I'd ask for your approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Jason, your total units for the entire project stays the same.
Correct.
For phase 2, you've got less buildings, but you've got, what, 12 more units?
Nope, units
Nope.
are all the same. We had
All the
200.
same.
We had previously 272 units approved on our project, and we currently have 272 units.
Okay, I guess I misread that. I
Yeah.
thought you, even though the total number stayed the same in phase 2, I thought you had 12 more units.
No,
But it
no,
might be,
it doesn't.
phase 1 might have a little less and phase 2 a little more.
I see between our phases. Yes,
Yes.
we moved, phase
Yeah.
1 has less units, quote unquote, than it was originally approved, and those
And
units
phase
were moved
2
over to phase
made
2.
up the,
There's a
okay.
really good chance that phase 1 and 2 probably goes together from a construction standpoint. They'll probably just start rolling on both units. So it's really not phased, would be my guess.
Okay.
So, but the same total units between phase 1 and phase 2 is 272
Yes,
prior to, it's still 272 today.
okay.
Correct.
Any other questions for Jason? Any other proponents wishing to speak? Larry, you're not wanting to speak? No, stay there. Any opponents wishing to speak? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Any additional comments or questions from the board? Eric?
Yeah, Jason did a great job describing the changes in the PUD. I don't have much to add. There'll have to be a little bit of coordination with a trail that's currently proposed around the drainage outlet on the northeast. That'll have to be taken out, but we would still like that connection perhaps on the northern portion of Lot 2. And then some clarification on making sure that we're at that 35-foot height maximum on some of the drawings being labeled with those dimensions. So we just need a little bit of clarification on those before City Council. So unless you have questions for me, staff recommends approval of the major amendment to the PUD, subject to submittal of acceptable final PUD plans, removing the proposed trails from Outlot A, providing pedestrian trail connection to the existing Grove Park Trail through Lot 3, within a public easement and building elevations in compliance with R5 regulators, prior to forwarding to City Council.
Do we have a motion?
Move approval of a major amendment to the PUD Planned Unit Development Overlay District, subject to submittal of an acceptable final PUD plans, removing the proposed trails from Outlot A, providing a pedestrian trail connecting to the existing Grove Park Trail through Lot 3 within a public easement, and building elevations in compliance with the R5 zoning regulators, including height, prior to forwarding this request on to City Council.
We have a motion and a second. Lisa, will you please record the vote?
Morris?
Yes.
Franklin?
Yes.
Rosacker?
Yes.
Pate?
Yes.
Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Motion approved.
Agenda item number 20, case C8-20-151, applicant Jackson Family Companies LLC. Request approval of a special use permit to allow auto sales in the GC district. Location southwest of 40th Street and Bedford Avenue. May we hear from the applicant, please?
Doug Kellner with TD2 10836 Old Mill Road, here on behalf of the applicant. Available to answer any questions you'd have.
Okay, thank you, Doug. Any other proponents wishing to speak? Seeing none, are there any opponents? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Additional comments or questions from the board? Eric?
Yeah, so this request for auto sales, it's a small site, but we believe with the recommended conditions that it can work. We do have some increased landscaping and a access closure from what was submitted to us, so I just want to touch on those so it's on the record, make sure the applicant and development team are aware. We are saying to increase the landscaping to 10 feet on the north property line, 5 feet on the south, 13.4 feet on the east, along with 4-foot tall screening on the east to go along with that buffer yard requirement. Elimination of the southeast access point along 40th Street, and then also that the business could have a wall sign only on the north facade of the building. This is a existing zoning in a highly residential area, but we recognize that it does have existing zoning in place. So along with that, we are requesting that an application to rezone from GC to CC comes in before forwarding to City Council to get rid of some of those potential grittier GC uses, just considering the context. And that's been a common theme whenever we have GC zoning to try to get that to a more compatible CC zoning district. I don't think I have anything else to add. Staff is recommending approval of special use permit to allow auto sales subject to the 8 conditions in the recommendation report.
Do we have a motion?
A motion for approval of a special use permit to allow auto sales subject to the 8 conditions in the recommendation report.
We have a motion, a second. Lisa, will you please record the vote?
Franklin?
Yes.
Rosacker?
Yes.
Pate?
Yes.
Moore?
Yes.
Morris?
Yes.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Motion approved.
And finally, agenda item number 21, case C8-20-152, applicant Teresa McClure for 7215 Omaha Holdings LLC. Request approval of a special use permit to allow large group living in the CC district. Location 7215 Ontario. May we hear from the applicant, please?
I'm Kyle Hawsey with E&A Consulting Group, 10909 Mill Valley Road, representing the applicant. Along with myself, Teresa McClure with North Point is in the audience as well. And then Mark Johnson, the representing attorney, is here for any questions that I might not be able to answer. The property that we're looking at is shown here with the dot. It is currently zoned CC. It is 1.8 acres. And there is an existing 1-story office building on the site. The applicant is proposing to remodel the facility for a residential substance abuse facility. So we need to request a special use permit to allow large group living in that CC district. We held a neighborhood meeting on July 28th. at the DoubleTree Hotel, which is right here next door. So we have DoubleTree Hotel, and then Burger King is just to the east of that is property as well, and then apartments to the west, and then single family to the northwest of the facility. When we had our neighborhood meeting on July 28th, we had 15 neighbors in attendance. 3 representatives from the applicant came into town as well to describe the facility and the course of their operation. I felt the meeting went well, and the neighbors' questions were generally answered, and we were able to provide a good description of how the facility will work. From a property standpoint, this use will drive just a couple changes on the site plan standpoint. The sidewalk will be added along Ontario Street, connecting to the existing, and that will actually be extended all the way down to 72nd as part of a replat process that occurred just last month. We'll also be proposing in the back area, there's a green space right now. This kind of shows that there is a proposed fenced-in patio area that the residents will be able to use back there. There will be some general maintenance to the parking lot improvements. The building will get a facelift with some new paint. There'll be a covered entry and possibly some mechanical screening for the roof. The interior will be remodeled to include new meeting rooms, offices, bedrooms, and dining facilities. And I want to put on record that the report calls out and was part of our original operation statement that there would be 40 beds, up to 40 beds included within the facility. As the architect progressed with the floor plans, we noticed that it was possible to get up to 44 beds within that building. So that would be something that would be an adjustment to the operational statement and part of the rec report as well. I'll provide an overview of the facility and its operation. Teresa here will be able to go into more further detail if there's something I can't answer. The applicant, North Point Recovery, they have 2 other similar facilities, one in Washington and then one in Idaho. It's a 28-day voluntary program, so no court-ordered attendees will be within the facility. All the attendees will be vetted by the staff as well. It is a service that is paid for by it's a service that is paid for by the residents or through insurance. As I mentioned, there's no court ordered or someone is forced to go. Part of the program is that they are active in the community, so there will be day trips planned, and all those day trips will be supervised by staff. They'll employ around 75 people, which will be a 24-hour staffed facility. These will include registered doctors and nurses, which are on staff 24/7 as well. This is a low traffic use. Very rare for attendees to drive there. Usually they are dropped off or by family members, employees, or employers, or doctors. The only other traffic generated that would be there would be from family visitation or family therapy groups, and then the employees would also be driving there as well, of course. As I mentioned before, these are all on a voluntary basis, all the residents. If attendees do decide to leave, there is an exit plan in place that will involve doctors, therapists, and family members or employers to help with pickup or rides. With that, I ask for approval, and I'll make myself available for any questions that you might have.
Okay, thank you. Any other proponents that wish to speak? Seeing none, are there any opponents wishing to speak?
Good afternoon. My name is Christine Young. I live at 6344 Poppleton Avenue. I'm actually here on behalf of my mother, Margaret Joan Young, who resides at 7313 Grover Street. And she is elderly, as are most of the residents that reside right around her. So I know that some of them expressed concerns about coming today because of COVID. So I know that they share some of the similar concerns that I expressed in a letter that should have been distributed to you today. I know that maybe it didn't come fast enough for you to read it, so what I would ask is that you please read the letter before you decide to make a decision. As I expressed in my letter, there are numerous concerns for people that reside in that neighborhood, a lot of which were expressed at the meeting. I detailed some of them in my letter. Obviously, people are objecting in large part to the fact that it's a drug and alcohol treatment facility that would be residing in predominantly what is a residential neighborhood. Kyle did show you what the neighborhood plan is, all those houses around that facility, in addition to the apartment complex that's in place. People had concerns about their property values declining, whether they'd have resale values that would be, or reselling that would be a problem because somebody would know that they had a facility in the neighborhood. Other issues would be the potential for crime to occur. As he said, this is a voluntary facility. I did mention in my letter that Mr. Flanagan, who was the CEO of North Point Recovery, did say to us that they have a treatment plan, but that there is no actual enforcement mechanism. If the person wants to leave, they're free to leave. Oftentimes, as I explained in my letter, I have had family members that are recovered alcoholics, so I have some familiarity with this type of intervention that usually happens. And as a result of it, there's consequences for people that if they don't comply with going to treatment, you're going to not enable them. You're not going to give them money. You're not going to give them drugs and alcohol again. You're trying to take a tough stance because you want them well. I understand that. I'm not opposed on a general proposition that there is a drug and treatment facility, just not in this location. And I know that my mom had very serious concerns. She's been a resident in Westgate since 1961. When we asked anybody at North Point whether or not they resided in the neighborhood or EA Consulting, Kyle admitted that he lives at 50th and Grover, but that's not Westgate. And I do believe that there are other places where this facility could be arranged to have, and I mentioned in the letter, why not have something where it's an all-in-one facility, where it can meet the needs, because it was also disclosed at the meeting that they are going to be pursuing an outpatient facility at some point in another area. So if they combine these resources, it would seem like a better management plan for somebody who's having a substance problem, needs to go to 28D treatment. They'd have a better way to track it because they'd have everybody on site. They'd have access to information that would definitely be part of a better management plan. I am opposed to the approval of a special use permit. I would suggest that this not be approved today. I know that my mother, if she'd been here, would be able to speak to that point as well. She's opposed to it. Like I said, we're not opposed to people getting treatment, just not in the current location that it's proposed to be. And I appreciate your giving me time to speak today. Thank you very much.
Any others opposed to this project that want to speak? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Kyle, did you want to come up and address any of the issues?
As we had the neighborhood meeting, I had mentioned that we had about 15 people in attendance at the meeting, along with representatives from North Point and myself. Generally, within that 15 people, I would say there's about 4 that had their concerns for the facility. There was 5 or 6 that showed us general support of it, and then the rest were there, I think, just from an informational standpoint. For one of the main concern, as she had brought up, was if there was going to increase any instances of crime within the neighborhood. As I mentioned, the facility is staffed 24/7. It is a voluntary facility, so they are able to leave anytime that they want. They won't hold them against their will. but generally there is an exit plan involved, so someone's there to pick them up if they do leave. So if someone did leave the facility, they were generally picked up, but there is obviously the ability
Hey,
for
Kyle,
them
can I-
just to leave.
Can I ask you a question on that?
Yes.
Is it an open campus? Or, I mean, because are you saying if they leave, they're not coming back to that program? They've exited, they've been kind of like dismissed? Or can they just walk to Burger King whenever they
No,
want to?
they can't just walk to Burger King whenever.
So it has to be
whatever.
an exit plan, a strategy. They're not just walking around the neighborhood, getting fresh air whenever they want to go out. It's not
Correct.
an open campus. They're being maintained.
They're being
and
supervised within.
Supervised,
Yep.
okay. Thank
And
you,
with
Kyle.
their day trips, usually it'll be, they'll have a van or a pickup that they are picked up in, and then supervised from staff. They have two other facilities, as I mentioned, in Washington and in the Boise area, I believe. And at those two facilities, which I think has been up about 6 years, is that correct? 6 years between the two facilities, and they have had no instances of crime or any problems with patients that they have within their residence.
Thank you.
May I
Any
make
other-
an additional comment?
Sure, I'll let you come forward. You have to give your name and address again.
Of course.
If there's something you forgot to say the first go-around, go ahead.
No, that's fine. Christine Young, 6344 Poppleton Avenue, on behalf of Margaret Joan Young at 7313 Grover Street. One of the other concerns is, and at least in sitting here and watching how this proceeds, is that you somehow have a little more information about things, because you certainly can address things and move it to vote very quickly. My mom received this letter, and like I said, a week ago, we attended a meeting. This is the first time that we had ever heard of the fact that this was going down. So I have concerns about someone who has a property interest not receiving adequate notice about what's going on. They could have certainly consulted a lawyer. They could review what their options are, whether or not they need to take legal action to prevent this. And there's just not sufficient time. This goes to vote. If a special use permit is granted, then they have to do some sort of collateral attack on this. It just seems unfair that they were not given adequate notice.
Did you or your mother attend the meeting that the applicant?
We did.
Okay, all right,
A week is not sufficient notice,
all right,
in my opinion.
okay.
Thank you very much.
Any additional questions or comments from the board? Eric?
Sure, just maybe starting off with that last point by Christine. With this being a special use permit, the staff makes a recommendation to the planning board, who is also making a recommendation to the city council. Ultimately, the final decision on approval or denial rests with the city council with a special use permit. So there is still adequate time that we can get you more information, we'll get you the recommendation report or whatever was submitted to us, or you can definitely, we always encourage speaking with the applicant and, getting that directly from them. They're gonna be able to answer questions, being the applicant and the one who's proposing to run the business, they could answer the questions most directly. So I do want to point that out. We wouldn't have, if this is recommended for approval today, we don't have the specific city council date set yet, but it'll be several weeks, just the way that, how long it takes to get the documentation put together and then sending it down. There might be a few items the applicant needs to address. So there still is time to have that coordination. I understand when our notices go out, it's usually about 2 weeks to 12 days before the actual meeting, and I understand it takes time and checking the mail, and but we can assist in getting you any of that information that we have received or the actual recommendation report. Specifically, for the request, there are only a couple of items that the applicant will need to continue to coordinate with us on. Anytime there's a small group or a large group living use, our zoning code is very specific with a set of criteria and information that needs to be provided. Most of that was provided very adequately. There's a couple items we just need a little bit of clarification on number of visitors or just how visiting hours and days work. So we will need an amended operating statement. Regarding the increase potentially to 44 beds, staff would not be opposed to that, provided that adequate off-street parking is met. So I know that there were, as currently proposed, the site plan does meet parking. There was a few non-conforming parking items on the southern portion, so we just need to make sure that adequate parking is being provided on site and the operating statement is amended prior to city council. Aside from that, I don't have anything else. Staff recommends approval of the special use permit to large group living in the CC district, subject to the 8 conditions in the recommendation report.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Special use permit to allow large group living in the CC district, subject to meeting the 8 conditions in the staff report.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Lisa, will you please record the vote?
Rosacker,
Yes.
Pate,
Yes.
Moore. Morris. Franklin.
Yes.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
motion approved.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, do we have a motion for approval of the pre-meeting minutes for July? We have a motion and a second. Lisa, will you record the vote?
Pate,
Yes.
Moore. Morris. Franklin.
Yes.
Rosacker. Mr. Chair,
Yes.
motion approved.
Do we have a motion for approval of the public meeting minutes? We have a motion and a second. Lisa, will you record the vote?
Moore. Morris. Franklin.
Yes.
Rosacker. Pate,
Yes.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
motion approved.
We have a motion for adjournment. Lisa, will you please record the vote?
Morris. Franklin.
Yes.
Rosacker. Pate,
Yes.
Moore. Mr. Chair,
Yes.
motion approved, adjourned 3:35.
Thanks, Matt.